Hello, sports history fans. I'm Ross from the podcast Pigskin Tales. You're about to jump into another thrilling sports history moment, but first, let's dive into today's sponsor, just in time for the holiday season. Introducing Art of Words, the brainchild of word artist Dan Duffy from Philadelphia. Dan meticulously crafts stunning images by handwriting relevant words from some of the greatest sports moments in time. These unique budget-friendly illustrations are the perfect gift, sparking cherished memories and capturing hearts. Choose from city skylines, sports, history, and musicians to find a piece for everyone. And here's the exciting part. For that sports fanatic in your life, gift them a piece of their favorite team or player's history. Art of Words tells a compelling story. Explore collegiate stadiums, each meticulously crafted with every football victory etched into words. Or venture into baseball stadiums, handwritten with every player from the team's illustrious history. My favorite on the site is Bryce Harper 2021 MVP year. Because I'm a big stats guy, I think that's one of the coolest things ever. Check it out. Don't wait. Order a print today for yourself and your loved one this holiday season. Transform your wall into a gallery of captivating art and surprise your family and friends with a print of their own. Use code SHN15 at artofwords.com for a 15% discount on your order in November and December. Visit Art of Words, where words magically transform into stunning art, evoking cherished memories and touching the hearts of those who you care about. Again, use the code SHN15 for 15% off at artofwords.com.
You're just in time to go back in time, and we're going to go back to the 1937 professional football season. We're going to talk about the NFL, a rival league, some great players, and some record-setting performances, as well as a very surprise in the NFL championship game. And an undefeated team that won a championship for the first time in football history of organized league play. We have this and more coming up in just a moment.
This is the Pigskin Daily History Dispatch, a podcast that covers the anniversaries of American football events throughout history on a day-to-day basis. Your host, Darren Hayes, is podcasting from America's North Shore to bring you the memories of the gridiron, one day at a time. So as we come out of the tunnel of the Sports History Network, let's take the field and go no huddle through the portal of positive gridiron history with PigskinDispatch.com.
This podcast is part of the Sports History Network, your headquarters for the yesteryear of your favorite sport. You can learn more at sportshistorynetwork.com.
Hello, my football friends. This is Darren Hayes of PigskinDispatch.com. Welcome once again to the Pig Pen, your portal to positive football history. And welcome to another edition of Football History Rewind, part number 81, where we are going to talk about the professional football season of 1937. If you're not familiar with our series, you can go into PigskinDispatch.com. Up at the top, click on football history, and you can go right through all of those different genres, year by year, the story of football history, taking us up to 1937 with this edition. Last time we talked about the college season, and we're going to talk about this pro season and some very interesting things that happened indeed there. But before we do, let's talk about how you can join our daily newsletter. You want to know when the next Football History Rewind segment is coming out on Pigskin Dispatch? Well, you can find that in the newsletter. You want to know what's going on in Jersey Dispatch? Maybe one of our great team series, the best of the franchise, and talk about jersey numbers. JerseyDispatch.com. It's in the newsletter. It comes out each and every day, 6:30 a.m. Really easy to sign up for. Go to the show notes of this podcast or the top of JerseyDispatch.com or PigskinDispatch.com, and you can cancel at any time, and it's totally free. You get some sports news each and every day from the history of athletic team sports, and I think it's a great, valuable thing that you can look at each and every day, and you can really enjoy that, so we invite you to do that. Now let's get into the 1937 professional football season, which is among one of the most memorable in NFL history. 1937 was the 18th regular season of the National Football League, and it was also notable for the increasing popularity of the sport. attendance was up at games, and the NFL was beginning to attract national attention, still in the shadows of the college game, but it was gaining a little bit of steam. The season saw some newer concepts coming out, such as specialists and players that were beginning to excel at one position very well. Remember, this is still the single platoon system where you had to play offense and defense. There was also a new rival league that was still hanging around in there. They played in 1936, but they were also there in 1937. And a non-Midwest franchise winning the NFL championship game for the first time in the league's history. We're going to cover some of those segments here. First of all, let's talk about that rival league. Now, back in part number 79 of the series, in the 1936 professional season, we discussed the Players League, which was the second rendition of the American Football League. Now, this version of the AFL would have its swan song in 1937, the final year of it, succumbing to its more well-established rival than NFL. But the first blow was having one of its more successful franchises from the previous season, the Cleveland Rams, leaving the fold to defect into the National Football League for the 37 season. Now, financial woes of many of the member teams and even the success of one of itself was a detriment to the league. The pioneering West Coast professional football scene, the Los Angeles Bulldogs, not only established themselves as the region's first home-based team in 1937, but they etched their name in history as the first professional team to achieve an undefeated championship season, a feat unmatched until 1948 by the Cleveland Browns in the AAFC, and again in 1972 by the NFL's Miami Dolphins. So we have a first there. Now, back in the NFL, some of those highlights were some notable for the emergence of several new stars, including Sammy Baugh, who became one of the greatest quarterbacks in NFL history. Baugh led the Washington Redskins to the championship game with his passing and running ability, and he was named the NFL's most valuable player in 1937. Another notable player from 1937 season was Don Hutson, who led the NFL in receptions at 41 while producing a shocking number of receiving yards at the time with 552. Now, Hutson was one of the most dominant receivers in NFL history, and he helped to make the passing game a more integral part of the game. Coach Curly Lambeau expounded upon what others were trying to do at all other levels of football in spreading ends out away from the rest of the formation. And with Hutson, it was a magical formula that suited the speedster's skill set and revolutionized the end position. In many ways, some strategic elements of the offensive game that still carry on to this day. Now, 552 yards and 41 receptions for an NFL split end or wide receiver doesn't sound like that much. But remember, we're talking about 1937, and the passing game was nowhere near developed to what it is now. But this specialized end that was standing away from the formation and that special player in Don Hutson were really making that to be quite a thing of the past and becoming quite a popular blend to do. And when you have a quarterback like Sammy Baugh starting to throw the ball around, and Arnie Arbor with the Green Bay Packers, who was throwing to Hutson, and you had some special things coming up in the coming years for the NFL. But staying in 1937, the Chicago Bears had the best record in football at 9-1-1, but they ended up losing the championship game. We'll get more to that in a second. The Redskins were led by Sammy Baugh, as we talked about, who threw 1,127 yards and 13 touchdowns. Cliff Battles was the Redskins' leading rusher, 874 yards, and scoring 8 times for him. So you had a pretty potent offense there for the Redskins. You didn't know if Baugh was going to step back and pass, or maybe even he was a threat to run, or Battles taking and pounding the ball out on the ground. So it kept the defenses off balance a little bit. Now the Bears, they had their offense was powered by a strong running game, and they didn't have a lot of balance with the pass. They threw a little bit, but didn't have the the receivers like Don Hutson or quarterback quite as good as Sammy Baugh. But Coach George Halas did have a strong committee of 4 solid running backs: Ray Nolting, Beatty Feathers, Jack Manders, and a 29-year-old Bronco Nagurski, who were just stellar, and each had produced almost about the same yardage. They were right there in the 200 to 400 yard range, so pretty spread out and balanced running attack by the Chicago Bears. Now the Redskins ended up winning the Eastern Division with a solid 8-3 and 0 tie record, overshadowing a pretty good New York Giants squad who were just back a little ways. They had 2 ties that were detriment to them. The Giants finished at 6-3 and 2. So back then there was no playoffs, so it was the winner of the division went to the championship game. And in the West Division, well, the Bears stormed past their competition, posting a 9-1-1 record on their slate. Now, these Redskins, they were newly transplanted and brought a lot of attention to the nation's capital. They left Beantown the year before. We talked about that, and George Preston Marshall and their owner and his famous move from Boston into Washington, D.C., and ended up being really good for the Redskins. That 9-3 record. 8-3 record took them into the championship game against the Bears, who were heavily favored, by the way. But it was the turn. Back then you took turns on where the championship game would be, and it was the East turn, and that championship game was played in the Griffith Stadium in Washington, D.C., in front of 60,000 fans. It was a record, 60,103. And the Redskins end up having their way for the home crowd, end up beating the Bears by a score of 28-21 in that game, and a very historic one indeed. And it was the first time that a team from the outside the Midwest had won the NFL championship. It was also a significant victory for the Redskins franchise as it marked the end of a long period of futility for that team. Because if you remember back to part number 79 in the 1936 season, we talked about the Redskins, who were the Boston Redskins at the time, ended up losing the championship game at neutral site Polo Grounds. Again, George Preston Marshall got to choose that place, and he didn't want to play in Boston where fans weren't turning out, so he went to the Polo Grounds in New York City. And but the Packers came in and beat the Redskins and sort of propelled the Redskins. The next year they wanted to do a little bit better, and they did, and knocked off the Bears in that championship game. So great season, some great stars emerging in Baugh and Hudson and Beatty Feathers and Bronco Nagurski are in there, and just some real talent going in the NFL that's going in the right direction. And boy, you just can't get much better than that. And a great season by those 10 teams of the NFL, and fending off their rival of that AFL and them succumbing to that. That's too bad. And congratulations to those Los Angeles team in that AFL winning all their games and the championship, and just a tremendous feat. Anytime a team can do that. So that's what we have for the 1937 season. We hope that you will join us next time for Football History Rewind, part number 82, when we will talk about the 1938 college aspect of the season, and I'll tell you about the best teams, players, and coaches from that year. And that'll come up in some of the weeks to come, but we have plenty more programming coming up for you. Every Tuesday we have Timothy P. Brown, footballarchaeology.com, talking about one of his tidbits, some great aspects of antiquity of the game of football, and just some things that you don't really get to talk about very often or think about, but boy, Tim sure does. We get to talk to him. We have some guests, some authors, and some other surprise little stories that will come up, and have some more solo tales of, with me telling you some stuff as well. So hope you'll stay with us and, tune in and make us one of your favorites on your favorite podcast provider, or, get that email newsletter like we said, and you'll know everything that's going on. Many of our great stories that we have every day. Not every day is a podcast, but we do have some great stories each and every day, tell you day-by-day football history and sports history when you combine it with JerseyDispatch.com. So until next time, everybody, have a great Gridiron day. That's all the football history we have today, folks. Join us back tomorrow for more of your football history. we invite you to check out our website, pigskindispatch.com, not only to see the daily football history, but to experience positive football with our many articles on the good people of the game, as well as our own football comic strip, Cleat Marks Comics. Pigskindispatch.com is also on social media outlets, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and don't forget the Pigskin Dispatch YouTube channel to get all of your positive football news and history. Special thanks to the talents of Mike and Gene Monroe, as well as Jason Neff for letting us use their music during our podcast.
This podcast is part of the Sports History Network, your headquarters for the yesteryear of your favorite sport. You can learn more at sportshistorynetwork.com. Hey there, sports history fan. This is Arnie Chapman, aka the Football History Dude, and I wanted to thank you for stopping by to listen to another episode here on the Sports History Network. Our podcasters are passionate about uncovering and sharing sports stories from yesteryear. And if you didn't know it already, we have over 30 shows across the network covering all sorts of sports history topics. In fact, here's a glimpse into one of our awesome podcasts here on the network.
Each week, the official Football Learning Academy podcast will take you deep into the history of pro football through interviews with players, coaches, or administrators in the NFL, as well as interviews with Pro Football Hall of Fame selectors, authors, and historians. You'll learn how the game evolved and important moments that shaped the sport into what it is today. And don't miss the Pro Football History Nugget of the Week. Listen to the official Football Learning Academy podcast on the Sports History Network.
How about that? I bet you're super hyped to go listen to that new podcast, right? Well, to learn about this show and all the other podcasts on the network, head over to sportshistorynetwork.com/podcast. Again, that's sportshistorynetwork.com/podcast. Head over there today to find your next favorite sports history podcast.